My wife wanted to kick me out of the house and let her ex move in. She added that her parents would always support her. I drove to her dad's office, and by dark, she was packing boxes while they urged me to stay and take care of the kids. Hey, Reddit. So, it looks like my wife thought that the house her parents own made her the queen of our whole life. I just smiled, replied sure, and watched her plans fall apart right in front of my eyes. Before we go into the mess she made for herself. Get a snack. This stuff almost cooked itself. My name is Dante. I'm a civil engineer in my mid-30s, and these days I seem to be managing more people than plans. 9 years of marriage. Rowan is one of the youngsters, and he never stops asking questions. And Kit, who thinks that every couch is a playground. Gideon and Celeste, my in-laws, own the enormous mansion we live in. They suggested we may live there for estate planning purposes. Their names are on the deed, but mine and Judy's are not. That element becomes significant. Gideon and Celeste reside across town, but they're not neighbors, so they can have Sunday dinners together. My wife Judy is in her early 30s and grew up in an environment where fights ended as soon as money was shown. She learned that tone long before she learned how to be responsible. For years, whenever we fought over anything other than washing, she'd say the same thing. Dante, you don't own this place. I used to ignore it since fighting in front of kids is meaningless. And to be honest, I didn't care whose name was on the papers as long as my kids were safe. Turns out I should have paid heed. When Judy got back in touch with an old buddy, everything changed. She said it like individuals do when they pretend they're only running errands. A way of speaking that makes the other person want to end the conversation before it ever starts. Steve was his name. I recalled him from the stories Mom told me when we first got married. He seems like a nice person, the kind who talks a lot but lives a little. Judy said they were getting back together. Nothing big. I didn't fight. People can have pals, but her phone habits changed overnight. People always turn their heads away from me, put their phones down on tables, and turn off notifications. These are all things people think they're being subtle about. She would be gone for 3 hours at a time to run errands. Her phone's location would go blank. She said it was on battery saver mode, even though it was 90% charged. It was as if she had 2 separate lives, and her whole schedule changed. I didn't jump to any conclusions. That's not how I do things. I just saw. We had dinner at Gideon and Celeste's after that. They are from the old school. Firm handshakes, quiet expectations, and Sunday dinners. With them, important calls are like a vote on the board. Put the facts on the table, then make a choice. Lately, Judy's orbit has divided. Leora bragged about everything she did, and Maeve, who used to be her best friend, had started to stay away from her. At first, Judy acted normally, but by dessert, her voice had a smug tone to it. We were talking about houses, maintenance, roof designs, and other things that homeowners do. Then she remarked with a light giggle, "Well, if we ever split, I'm staying here with the kids. Dante will figure it out." She didn't look at me. She didn't. She gave her folks a look that said she wanted them to see the power move. I didn't say anything. There was no point in arguing a line that was clearly practiced. I just put it away in the same manner that I put away structural stress spots on a job site. You don't freak out about them. You just write it down for later. Rowan came home from school a few days later and said something that kids don't know is a grenade. Steve, Mom's buddy, brought us out for ice cream. He also got Kit some sprinkles. I froze for half a second, not because I was jealous, but because it didn't make sense. Judy never said anything about taking the kids somewhere that day, and she never said anything about having Steve with her. Before I could even think about it, Judy yelled at Rowan from the kitchen. It was a group thing. Don't make it seem strange. Rowan seemed confused and stopped talking right away. That response told me more than the trip to get ice cream. Suddenly, everything that didn't make sense made sense. The late errands, the empty places, and the strange confidence she had when she talked about divorce like it was nothing. Steve wasn't just a friend. He wasn't even a secret anymore. At least not to the kids. I strolled into the living room that night after the kids were asleep and noticed Judy on the couch with a phone that lit up her face. First, she didn't hear me. She was beaming at the screen, the type of smile that people don't waste on merely friends. I didn't say anything. I wasn't even going to peek. But when she turned the phone a little, the message preview flashed bright enough for me to see it. We will discuss about moving you in tomorrow. Her thumb was over the screen, typing something back that I couldn't see. She slumped back into the cushions like someone who thinks they deserve to sit on a throne. I took a brief picture of her lock screen with my own phone. I didn't want to confront her. I simply wanted to have a record of what I witnessed. At that point, the image was finished. Judy wasn't only cheating. She wasn't just thinking about leaving. She had already thought of what would happen in the next chapter. She thought the house was her trump card, the move that let her trade her husband for her ex, keep the kids, and keep living the way she was bred to expect. She felt it would be easy to get me out because my name wasn't on the deed. I didn't talk to her. I didn't make a sound. I didn't leave. I waited there for a few seconds without being observed, letting the whole scene come together like a blueprint finally clicking. It was time for me to start planning my future with the truth fully on the table, as she was planned hers without me. And the next day, that truth was finally going to meet the people who really owned the house she thought she could govern. That morning, Judy told her mom friend that she was going to the park with the kids. She said it like she was talking about the weather. I didn't think too much about it because Rowan and Kit were so happy. I kissed them on the head, encouraged them to have fun, and then I went back to work on a site report. I checked my phone at noon out of habit and found that Judy's location had gone dark. Not fade, not glitch, just blink and it's gone. Came back on somewhere in town 10 minutes later, but then it went away again. That only happens when she turns off tracking or switches apps in a way that makes location permissions turn off. She had cited battery saver as an explanation before, but she had used that phrase too many times for it to mean anything. I contacted her once to check on the kids. Right to voicemail. I don't get scared easily. My gut would have informed me if the kids were in danger. Instead, I kept everything the same. I finished my job, fixed dinner, and assisted Rowan with his schoolwork over video conference when the school app pinged. Then I waited. They never got home. Judy had left them with Gideon and Celestas without telling me. She texted later, "Kids are with my parents. They wanted extra grandparent time." This meant that she needed to be free to do what she wanted. It was strange how calm the home was. Rowan usually asks 100 questions about dinosaurs or planets. The kid normally runs around in circles until someone tells them to stop. The house was quiet that night. I cleaned up, looked at the calendar for school reminders for the kids, and saw an icon on the shared iPad calendar that I'd never seen before. We also have a joint email account for bills and school announcements. So anything about utilities or addresses gets to that email right away. Just initials for a brunch reservation. J is her fake name when she wants to keep plans secret. 11:30 in the morning, the specific place is Midtown Bistro, which is close to Steve's house. The reservation was made the night before. Judy didn't have brunch. Judy didn't wake up till after 8 most of the time, unless we had plans. And she never wrote anything on the communal calendar that wasn't for the kids. That was enough proof for me to verify for myself, not to follow her or make a scene, but just to know the truth before I talked to anyone else about it. I took my keys, drove to Midtown, and didn't say a word the whole time. No music, no phone calls, and no fake fights. I just needed to know what was real instead of assuming. The proof was already there when I turned into Steve's block. Judy's automobile was parked directly outside his apartment building. There were no unbuckled booster seats for kids in the back. There was no park bag and no signs that she had been near swings or slides that day. I didn't stick around. I didn't knock. I drove straight by, went around the block to make sure I wasn't imagining things, and then went home. When she came in a couple of hours later, her face was glowing. She didn't try to get away. She looked happy. That's the only way to say it. The radiance faded as soon as she saw me looking at her. She went into defensive mode like someone switching a switch. "You got home early," she observed, even though I hadn't left yet. "I live here," I said. She threw her keys on the counter and went right to cleaning the sink, which was already spotless. Her propensity of being apprehensive. I didn't yell. I didn't put her in a corner. I didn't say anything bad about her, even though her whole body language said it all. I asked her one question, and it was quiet enough to make her flinch. Where were you at the time? Her shoulders froze up. Then she turned around with wide eyes, as if the inquiry was an attack. Really? She lost it. Are you doing this again? Dante, are you paranoid? My spiraling causes half of our fights, my therapist said. That's interesting, since her therapist quit on her last year because she kept lying throughout sessions. I kept my face blank. Give her a chance to speak. She crossed her arms and huffed loudly. I can't handle this domineering conduct. If you keep pushing me like this, I'll take the kids in this house. My parents will support me. You already know that. It was there again. The home. Her favorite gun. The idea that the property she didn't possess somehow made her invincible. She always said it like it was the last word, like she thought it was the conclusion of the conversation. But this time, things changed since I wasn't hearing a threat for the first time. I could hear her talk about the exact blind spot she was hoping for. I stared her right in the eyes. There was no rage or fear, simply the truth said clearly. Judy, they own the deed, not you. Her face froze in the middle of a breath. She stood there holding her phone for a few seconds. Then she turned around, stopped being defensive, and started to sound more direct. She strolled by me and into the living room, where she sat down and patted the couch as if to say, "Come sit down for an appointment." "Okay," she said. "Let's just talk now since you're clearly in a mood." I didn't sit. I leaned against the door. She took a deep breath as she was about to read from a script. "I'm done with this marriage. I want a divorce. I'm with Steve." There it was. There was no build-up, no pause, and no apology. She said it like it was something she had practiced all day. The same glow that had been there when she went and came back. But this time it was mingled with control. She kept talking before I could answer. "I've figured everything out," she said, brushing her hair back like she was resetting a presentation slide. "I'm staying in the house. Obviously, the kids will be with me full-time. Primary custody. That's just the natural arrangement." She spoke slowly, as if she wanted me to feel each hit but not respond. She went on, "You will take them every other weekend. If it makes sense, maybe a weeknight supper. We'll act like adults about it." I figured out then that she wasn't waiting for me to say anything. She was explaining how she thought the court had ruled. "And once you leave," she said, clicking her nails on the couch arm, "Steve will be moving in. Not immediately away, but soon. The kids already like him. He's good for them. More present than you." She stated that part on purpose, right at me. "Dante, you're dull." She added, "You're quiet. You're not here. I've been carrying this marriage. I need someone who makes me feel alive." I almost laughed at the thought that Steve, who lived in a box-sized apartment that he didn't pay for, would become the heroic father figure in her new life. But I didn't move my face. Judy watched me, expecting me to yell or have a big breakdown. She wanted a response that she could use as a weapon later. She got one question. "So, you're going to let your ex move in with my kids in your parents' house? Is that the plan?" She smirked slowly and with confidence. She wanted me to say it out loud. She said, "It's not a plan. It's going on." The way she stood made it clear that she thought she had one. She believed she was in charge of the house. She figured Gideon and Celeste would support her because they always have. She thought she could replace me, keep the property, keep the lifestyle, and rewrite the family around Steve. She was so sure that she had the guts to move a throw cushion, as if she were getting the house ready for a new period. I didn't shout. I didn't walk around. I didn't try to change her mind about what she was doing. There was nothing that could be saved here. She had crossed out the marriage long before this talk. I didn't do that. Instead, I walked down the hall to our room and took a tiny overnight bag out from beneath the bed. She must have heard the zipper because she crossed her arms and followed me to the door. "You're leaving," she murmured, lifting her chin. "Good. That's the first step." I ignored her long enough to put on a pair of jeans, a shirt, and a few other things I needed. I zipped up the bag, took it up, and let her assume for about 3 seconds that she had pushed me out. She even moved out of the way to allow me room. Instead of passing past her, I put the bag down on the dresser and walked back to the living room. She turned quickly, not sure what to do. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I didn't say anything," I said as I sat down on the couch she had just set up as her throne. She looked at him like she couldn't understand what he was doing. "This isn't how this works, Dante," she said angrily. "You can't just leave," I remarked gently. She got angry. "You have to. This house isn't yours," I said. "And I'm not leaving so you can move your boyfriend in before the dust settles." She didn't look angry at me. It was hard to believe. No one had ever said no to one of her ultimatums. Not when I was a kid, not when I was an adult, and definitely not in this house. She thought people would do what she said. Instead, I sat there like a problem she didn't know how to fix. She continued, "Gideon and Celeste will stand by me," her voice cracking now. "Not with fear, but with the first hint of doubt. They always have. They'll side with the truth," I said. She didn't know what it meant yet, but by the time I was done sitting there with my bag packed, my patience steadfast, and my plans formed, she would. And tomorrow, the folks who really owned the deed will hear everything she had been planning without them knowing. I wasn't going to leave the house. Not until the board saw everything for themselves. The next morning, I didn't stay at home long. I didn't wait for Judy to wake up and start her show again. I got dressed, grabbed the luggage I had packed the night before, and drove straight to Gideon's main office for car sales. There were already a lot of people there. Setting up exhibits and wheeling automobiles out of service bays are common sounds for a weekday morning. When I walked in, Gideon's assistant didn't even ask me anything. With a stern look on her face, she just pointed me to his office, as if she already knew this wasn't a casual visit. Celeste was also there when I walked in. She was standing next to Gideon's desk with her coat on, as if she had just gotten there. The way they both looked at me, serious, alert, and waiting, told me they knew something was going on. Gideon pointed to the chair across from him. He told her to sit down, not in a mean way but in a forceful way. I sat down. No small talk or warming up. "I told you I would tell you the facts. All I need from you is to hear them." They nodded their heads. So I got going. I mentioned clearly that Judy had begun dating Steve again. Not just as friends, but as a real relationship. Celeste's eyebrows furrowed, but she didn't say anything. I kept telling it how it was, with no extra details. No drama, no comments. She wants to move him into the house. I told her that her plan is for me to go. She takes care of the kids full-time and Steve moves in after I'm gone. I had only seen Gideon's jaw quiver like that once before, when a business partner tried to scam him out of money. I continued on going. She has been threatening to kidnap the kids and use this property as leverage. She says she will stay here with them because you will back her. As I spoke, Celeste slowly sat down with her hands clasped in her lap. I told them what Rowan said about ice cream, how Steve had taken the kids out without my knowing, how Judy became mad at him for bringing it up, how her phone's location kept changing, how she had lied about running errands and meeting up with people. I took my phone out of my pocket and put it on the tabletop. I said, "This is the reservation she made yesterday," as I opened the screenshot of the shared iPad calendar. "Brunch close to Steve's house. This is the picture I took of her lock screen preview last night," and I swiped to the next one. "We will discuss about moving you in tomorrow." Celeste's face became cold. Not angry, but chilly and in control. Gideon didn't say anything. He looked at the television like he was reading a clear message of treachery. After a long time, he asked a very direct inquiry. "How long has she been with him?" I said months. Longer than she'll say out loud. I thought they would be in shock or denial, but neither of them seemed startled by the timetable. They were simply dissatisfied. Celeste was the first to speak. "We told her," she whispered softly. "We found messages between her and Steve a long time ago. We told her to stop talking to him right away." "I didn't know that." "She promised us she had," Celeste said, her voice changing from hurt to something stronger. "She told us she was committed to her marriage and her kids." Gideon's face tightened, angry without saying a word. Not loud, not showy. "Even worse," he said slowly. The house was meant to support a family, not to fund an affair, not to be used as leverage, and not for that man to step into. I said nothing. They weren't talking to me. They were processing their daughter's decisions. Celeste sank back, her hands hard on her knees. Our grandchildren don't live with instability, she remarked. Not in our home. Not under our roof. She wasn't talking about me. She was talking about Judy. Gideon exhaled long and controlled. Then he looked at me directly. You and the kids stay. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even an offer. It was a decision. Judy leaves. He added, she made her choice. Celeste nodded once sharply. And Steve will never set foot inside that house. We'll make that clear. I felt the weight shift, not in my favor, not against Judy personally, but toward the kids. Everything they did was for them. Gideon stood up. We're calling a family meeting tonight, he said. 7 o'clock at the house. I knew exactly what that meant. Judy wouldn't expect this. She thought she'd walk into support and sympathy. Instead, she'd be walking into a truth she'd been avoiding for months. Celeste reached for her bag, but stopped and looked at me with a steady, unblinking expression. Be here, she said. She's going to explode when she hears it. There was no exaggeration in her voice. No fear either, just certainty, like someone predicting whether they've seen 1,000 times. I nodded. No arguments, no victory laps. I just stood and left the office quietly. The decisions had been made. The meeting was set. And for the first time, Judy's trump card was about to be turned face up in front of the people who actually owned the deck. At 7 o'clock sharp, the four of us were in the living room, the same room where Judy had laid out her fantasy life 24 hours earlier. Gideon sat in his usual armchair, arms folded, expression carved from granite. Celeste stood beside him, posture straight, every detail of her face controlled. I sat on the edge of the couch, not speaking. The room was stiff with purpose. Judy walked in last. She didn't come in hesitant or nervous. She walked in like someone waiting to receive an award. Shoulders back, chin up, a small smirk like she'd already won a debate that hadn't started. Oh, she said, looking around. Everyone's here. Good. I wanted to talk about next steps anyway. She had no idea she had just run into a wall. Gideon didn't get up. He didn't make his voice softer. Judy, he said, sit down. She blinked at the tone, which she hadn't heard from him in years, but she nonetheless sat down across from him. Gideon didn't spend any time. He said, we know everything. She stopped smiling. Everything what, Steve? He said. The affair? Your plan to move him into this house, your threats, all of it. It was like watching a curtain drop. The confidence evaporated, replaced by instant calculation. Judy's brain switched gears so fast you could practically hear it. Her first move was tears. Not quiet tears, dramatic ones. She pressed her hands to her eyes like she'd been struck. I can't believe he would twist things like this, she said between gasps, pointing toward me. He manipulated you. He's attempting to make you hate your own daughter. Everyone stayed still. Judy looked through her fingers to see what was going on in the room. She didn't see any pity, therefore she got worse. You're picking him over me? She yelled. Your son-in-law is more important than your own blood? He's not telling the truth. You're falling for it. Celeste's voice was calm and steady. We're picking the kids, Judy. Over disorder, over lying, over lack of stability. That made Judy stop talking. Celeste didn't yell. She didn't have to. Gideon bent over. He said, you're not staying in this house and Steve isn't coming in. Judy jumped up from the couch so quickly that it scraped the wood floor. You can't say that to me. This house is supposed to be mine. Gideon said no. We made the rules, not you. It's ours. She pointed at me like she was giving proof. He told you lies to stuff your brains. I told them I didn't have to. You wrote the script on your own. That made her go from crying to full-on wrath. The kind that makes her voice sharp enough to cut through drywall. I am your daughter. She yelled at her mom and dad. You owe me loyalty, not him. Gideon didn't move. Being loyal doesn't mean hurting your own family. That was the end of the match. I could tell that the neighbors could hear Judy's speech through the walls because it was so loud. She walked back and forth, yelling, ranting, and playing back her own arguments. Then someone knocked on the door, noisy and confused. A neighbor wanted to know if everything was okay. Celeste opened the door, said she was sorry, and then closed it again. Judy didn't even stop. She fled upstairs after another round of ranting. We heard her closet door crash open, drawers pulled out, and hangers dragged across metal. She was flinging garments into bags with the strength of someone attempting to make a point with fabric. She yelled her next threat halfway down the steps. "I'll call the police for kids. I'll let them know that he's not stable. You'll be sorry for doing this to me." I stayed totally still. She wanted to be scared. She needed a response. I wasn't giving her either. Without showing any emotion, Gideon stared up at her. "Go ahead," he said. "Tell them. Then tell them why you thought moving an affair partner into our property with 2 children was responsible." Judy froze for half a heartbeat. Then she stomped the rest of the way down, her bags over her shoulder and her eyes wide. "You all are crazy," she said angrily. "You'll see. Everyone will see." She slammed the door behind her and rushed out, as if she owned hinges and gravity. She then drove off the driveway and toward Steve's apartment. That night, a USPS change of address confirmation came to our house's inbox, sending Judy's mail to Steve's building. Not long later, she got a notice that the utilities will be turned on for that same unit. I kept both. The house was quiet. Rowan and Kit weren't there, but it felt like we were protecting the space for when they came home. I put the bag that she didn't take away from the others. Gideon sat down hard, and Celeste rubbed his shoulder. They didn't appear like they had one. They looked like parents who were sad because their daughter had willingly walked into a calamity. Around 10 o'clock that night, my phone vibrated with a voicemail from a number I didn't know. I didn't hear it ring. The person who called hung up right away. I listened to the message. "Hello, this is Miss Drayton from the school office. Judy sent us a report about safety at home, and according to policy, we sent it to Child Protective Services. We do need to check in. Could you return this call so we can confirm everything is safe with Rowan and Kit?" I called back to make sure the reference was real. They had to pass it on. I didn't need anyone to inform me who filed it. Judy tried to make the system into her own megaphone less than an hour after she left. She wanted everyone in the area to hear her. Now she wanted the school to hear her as well. She wasn't done making noise. Celeste and Gideon were already at the house by mid-morning to look at how the youngsters did things. Celeste kept them busy at the table while Gideon worked on a noisy cabinet hinge. Child Protective Services didn't waste any time. The school had told Judy about the report that night, so a worker came to the door early the next afternoon. She carefully explained the visit while holding a clipboard and then went inside. The house was spotless, not staged, just normal toys and baskets, dishes put away, laundry folded. Rowan and Kit were at the dining table with Celeste, putting together a puzzle. Gideon was fixing a hinge on a cabinet door. No stress, no problems, just normal life. The worker looked around, wrote down what they saw, and asked the usual questions. Did the kids eat? Did anyone get hurt? Have there been any problems lately? Rowan was the first to answer half of the questions. Kit added their own comments. The worker smiled, jotted something down, and looked at me. "Look stable," she added. "I'll finish my report." 10 minutes later, she shut her folder. She added, "I'm marking this as a retaliatory filing. We'll also let the school know. You will get a confirmation." One problem solved. It was coming for the bigger one. That afternoon, we asked for emergency temporary orders, and the court set a hearing for 3 days later. I came in with my lawyer, calm and steady. Gideon and Celeste were already sitting behind us, present, clear-eyed, and steady. Leora followed Judy like a personal hype squad when she got there. Judy had put on her makeup just like she does before family pictures. Soft, innocent, and on purpose. She carried tissues before anything had even started. When her side was called, she let loose the show. She wiped away tears that were just starting to form. She sniffed in a big way. She said in a shaky voice that I had cut her off from everyone else, taken charge of the money, and had her walk on eggshells. Leora nodded hard at every line, as if her agreement was proof. Then Judy said, "He turned my parents against me. He made them think I'm unstable. None of this is my fault. I'm being pushed out of my own home." Her lawyer ended with a dramatic speech on the bond between a mother and her children and how much they require their primary emotional caregiver. My lawyer didn't try to be dramatic. She stood up, put the papers in order, and began clearly. "First, Mrs. Hargrove went out on her own," she said. "Here are the confirmations with the date and time. A USPS change of address that sends her mail to Steve's address and a utility start service order in her name for that unit." She gave it to the judge. "Second, here's a screenshot of her and Mr. Hargrove's minor child saying that Steve, her affair partner, has previously been alone with the kids. Another paper was given over. Third, here is a picture of her lock screen preview with that line on it, along with the timestamp. The printed picture landed on the table with a gentle thud. Fourth," she went on, "the house in question is owned entirely by Mr. and Mrs. Marlowe, Gideon and Celeste, not by either spouse. It was never transferred during the marriage. We have deed documents, tax filings, and accompanying correspondence." She pointed behind us. "Both of them are there to testify." Judy became stiff. Leora said something in a hurry in her ear. Judy's lawyer was having a hard time finding his footing. "Your Honor, the marriage gave the house as a gift. It works as property for the marriage. Mrs. Hargrove should stay there for the sake of the kids." The judge nodded in Gideon's direction. "Please walk forward, Mr. Marlowe." Gideon didn't think twice. He walked up to the witness stand, put one hand on the rail, and answered all of the questions clearly. He stated, "We bought that house for our grandkids. It was never given to either spouse. We let them live there because we thought they were making the family life solid." He looked right at Judy before going back to the judge. "That stability is no longer there because of her decisions. The house was meant to keep our grandkids safe. That safeguard is still in place." The judge didn't need anything else. She looked over the papers, glanced at her notes, and made her decision. The kids will still live with their father, Dante Hargrove, as their main home. He is at home with his family, and the grandparents who own the house have made it clear what they want. Judy's breath hitched loudly. The judge went on, "Mrs. Hargrove will have visitation every other weekend and one midweek evening." Judy gasped as if she had been slapped, and the judge added, "The person known as Steve may not be around the children for 6 months to ensure transitional stability." Judy's chair scraped the floor as she stood up too quickly. "You can't do this. You can't," she said. The judge gave her a calm look. "I just did." Outside the courtroom, Judy stormed into the hallway, her voice raised enough that someone down the hall stopped in their tracks. "You stole my life," she yelled at me. She had tears running down her face, yet she wasn't sad. She was very angry. I glanced at her without moving. "You gave it to him when you tried to move him into our kids' rooms." Leora gasped as if the words had smacked her in the face. Judy was about to say something back, but someone else came out of a door nearby. "Maeve!" She crossed her arms and looked at Judy with a look that said she'd stopped believing her months ago. She got close enough for me to hear her. She stated she's already telling a narrative online, and Steve is acting like he won. I nodded once. The conflict that Judy thought she could manage was about to burst out in a place she couldn't script. Public opinion. She wasn't ready for what that would look like. Judy had already started her next attack by noon the day after the custody hearing. She put up a full-length post on her social media that was several paragraphs lengthy and read like a dramatic memoir written in the middle of the night. She said she was a wife who had been emotionally abandoned. She said that Dante was controlling Gideon and Celeste. The last line was the real kicker. "He took the kids away from me." Leora was in the comments section fixing things like she was getting paid for it in a matter of minutes. "Judy, you're so powerful. Everyone knows that Dante is frigid. This was abuse that looked like stability. The courts make mistakes all the time." She responded to every negative comment, battling with people she didn't know as if she were attempting to win a court case with emoticons and emotive speeches. At first, I didn't get involved. I let it run until the comment section started to pull on my phone, attempting to get me to justify myself. Then I wrote one sentence. That's it. Before she left the house, she left the family. I didn't post again. I didn't fight. After that, I didn't touch the thread. You dump the truth like that and walk away. The attempt to delete began 20 minutes later. Judy deleted some comments, blocked 3 people, and tried to rewrite the caption, but it was too late because Maeve had already seen the post. And Maeve was really clear. She spoke something in public. I saw her making plans to move Steve in while she was still married. Stop telling lies for her. No drama, no extended explanation. This is just a fact from someone who used to be Judy's best friend. That was when the whole thread changed. People who had been lending their support suddenly stopped. People started asking Judy questions that she couldn't answer without giving out more information about herself. Why did Steve have your kids all to himself? Don't your parents own the deed? Didn't you leave first? Why did the judge let Dante keep the kids? Every time Judy tried to defend herself, she just made things more confusing. Leora kept trying to fix the holes, but she didn't have enough hands. After a while, she was arguing with 3 people at once, then 5, then 10. At first, she sounded sure of herself, then she sounded scared, and then she stopped talking altogether. By evening, the entire thread had transformed from a sympathy grab to a roast session she couldn't stop. It wasn't mean. It was true. Things became worse for her after that. 2 days later, Steve posted a picture of himself with another woman on his own social media. He had his arm over her shoulders and there was a sunny setting behind them. Surround yourself with people who don't cause problems in your life. Lots of hearts and cheering emojis in the comments. There was no mention of Judy at all. In his new chapter, she wasn't even a footnote. That was the last proof. She had ruined her marriage, her home, her reputation, and her connection with her parents for a man who left her as soon as things were tough. A week after Steve's post, Judy came to my door with Leora behind her like a backup singer. Judy didn't knock softly. She hit hard. When I answered the door, she was standing there with red-rimmed eyes and a wobbly stance, but her voice was still keen enough to try to cut through me. She said, "I need closure, and a chance to make things right." Leora nodded angrily, as if that made the request official. Judy moved closer. "You can't just go on with your life like nothing happened. A lot of men would fight for me. There was nothing I could do." The smile that came out wasn't mean. It was just pure and clear. I told her that most guys would have fought to keep her. I fought to protect the kids. Leora put her palm over her heart and gasped, as if I had done something wrong. "You're heartless," she said angrily. I shrugged once. Heartless is an odd word for not putting up with disrespect. Judy opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. It was like someone was trying to force a story that wasn't going to work anymore. I went back inside and shut the door. They didn't say anything else before they left. About a month later, Gideon and Celeste asked me to come back to the dealership office. This time it wasn't an emergency. It was more like business. Gideon pushed a folder across the desk to me. There was a trust document inside that was clean, notarized, and already filed. Rowan and Kit were putting the house into a trust. Not for Judy, not together, not now. Gideon and Celeste were named trustees right away. I signed an occupancy agreement as the children's residential guardian, which means I stay in the house for them until they are grown or the trustees determine that anything needs to change. Celeste made it easy to understand. We want the kids to always have a place to live. This makes sure it. She didn't sound angry or resentful. She just knew what stability should look like for grandchildren who didn't want to be part of a divorce. Gideon added, "She thought the house made her powerful. She forgot it's ours." I signed the acknowledgement paperwork and thanked them. They didn't do it for me. They did it for Rowan and Kit, but it still mattered. Judy found out 2 days later. She didn't call. She didn't text. She showed up at her parents' front door and unleashed another screaming match loud enough that their neighbors heard every word. Her parents' neighbors recorded it. Different street, same spectacle. Every shout Judy made only proved the exact point the trust document had been created to solve. Instability doesn't get rewarded, especially when children are involved. In the end, Judy learned the same truth everyone else eventually saw. She wanted to use their money like a weapon. They just made sure the bill landed where it belonged. Guys, we are so close to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 1,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come